What would Mavis do?
Caring.
Honest.
Reliable.
Passion.
Compassionate.
Compassionate.
Knowledgeable.
Extraordinary.
Hard work.
Professional.
Values.
Inspirational.
Friend.
It is what it is. There was one that sticks out. I was working in a service many years ago when I was probably only about 19, and it was management on call, and I had to phone her because there was an incident, and she must have knew I was completely out of my depth. I was so young, but she put me at ease before she'd done anything, and then came straight down and was like, "I'm coming down to see you, Lisa, make sure everything's okay." And obviously she was there for the person, but she was looking after me as well. And I'll never forget that because she just made me feel at ease completely. And it wasn't a stupid, didn't make me feel like it was a stupid thing that I had done, but put me at ease, definitely.
I suppose one of the stories, it kind of relates to the fact what everybody thinks about Mavis and what's really Mavis are two different things. So I remember I used to manage Mavis as part of my role. And I remember going to the service one day and I was let into the service by another team member, and Mavis was actually in a team meeting. So I was there and I was through in another room, and Mavis was having a difficult conversation with a colleague in the team meeting, and the colleague was just saying the same thing over and over and over. And it was just really Mavis's patience, but unrelenting kind of, this is the way it needs to be, like just reinforcing the way the service needs to run, the high standards that they had, and the team member just kept talking and saying the same thing in different ways, and Mavis just kept reiterating, and it'd have been easy to lose your patience or to be like quite directive with it, but she was just so patient and gentle with the person, but unrelenting. And I think that's the thing, like people would always be like, Mavis is, I suppose hard would be the way that people would talk about her, but she isn't like that. She just tells people the truth constantly and sticks to that even when it's difficult and hard for her. So I think that's the thing that I kind of think about a lot when I think about Mavis, is she always has the hard conversations in the pursuit of good quality services.
So Mavis has always been my manager since I started 21 years ago. Mavis has kind of followed me about, or I've followed her about. In one of the services where I used to work when I was a support worker, we used to sit round the table in the morning and have a cup of tea, and you could see Mavis's car coming up the drive. And as soon as Mavis's car came, everybody split in all directions because you just knew that Mavis would come in and would want the work to be getting done. Mavis has mellowed over the years a bit. I think since her grandchildren came along, she's mellowed, and she's just an amazing person.
It was quite a few years ago, and Mavis was in a different role to the one that she is now. So she's an operations manager now, but she was a service manager at the time, and she'd worked in this one service, a brilliant service, Broomage Crescent, for many years. But I was overseeing a scenario in another service, and this other service really needed help. And I was having a conversation with Mavis, and I said at the beginning to her, I said, listen, the one thing I'm not going to ask you to do is to move, because I know that you're happy, I know that you're settled, you love your job where you are, so I'm not going to ask you to do that. But we were talking sort of like informally about this other place, what we were dealing with, the challenges and what we needed to do. And by the end of that conversation, it wasn't me asking Mavis to go and help, but it was her offering to go and do this for a period of time to help the people supported in that service. And we always used to laugh about that, because Mavis said that she went home that evening and was talking to her husband, Edwin, and she was saying, you know, I don't know how that happened. I went quite determined that I wasn't going to switch from my service, and Paul even told me that he wasn't going to ask me to do it, and yet that was the outcome. And it always made me laugh about, I think that makes Mavis laugh about me, as if I'd been kind of Machiavellian in some way, but it always makes me laugh about Mavis, because I think that just sort of typifies her sort of willingness to help, her spirit, her hard work, and yeah, that's one of the things that I've always kind of thought about.
I mean, there's so many stories I can think of. I suppose the first time I ever met Mavis, she was facilitating training for epilepsy, and she's a phenomenal trainer. You know, her insight and knowledge is just second to none. And afterwards, I was discussing something with her. She was chatting me through something, and I used a term that Cargon doesn't use, and that's not necessarily used nowadays, kind of thing. And she sort of picked me up on it straight away, and I've never used that word since. And part of that is just because of the amount of respect I have for her. You know, just that sort of the fact that she knows right from wrong, and she knows, you know, exactly what she expects from you. And she instills that within our teams, you know, that they know what to do, what not to do. So yeah, that was my first memory of Mavis anyway.